The ones that most apply to roads are physical takings. This is where the government comes in and physically occupies some of the property. It's pretty clear cut. It's fairly simple. I put simple in quotation marks because you still have disputes about property value. I have had 2 or 3 of these cases lately where the question really is the road that was widened and improved, is that a county road? And so that's not a very simple question to answer. So they can get a little complicated, but usually it's just a question of, did you take the property? If you took the property, what's the fair market value of the property that was taken? The other kind of taking is an unlawful exaction. Now, exactions are when the county says to a developer, yes, we'll give you a permit to build this subdivision, but in return, you need to build a road, not in the subdivision, but alongside the subdivision, to service the subdivision. Something like that. It's an exaction, something they ask for in return to approve the application. This is not straightforward. They're often complex, and I'll get to the reason why in a little bit, but they're extraordinarily frequent. Your governments are dealing with exactions and exposing themselves to the risk of an unlawful exaction probably weekly, because every single subdivision that gets approved has an exaction component to it. An exaction component means if you're asking for too much, you're exposing yourself to a takings claim. All right? So let's talk a little bit about what that requires. The courts have said, and this is now in our state code, that you need 2 things for an exaction to be legal. It doesn't rise to a taking unless it's illegal. So as long as it's legal, you're okay to require an exaction. The first step is this thing called an essential nexus, which is legalese for an essential connection between what's being asked for of the developer and the government's legitimate interest. So, a public road, if you're asking the developer to put in a public road, it probably meets this part of the test. However, if you're asking for vacation homes for your county commissioners, probably doesn't meet that part of the test. Now that's an exaggeration, but this is a lot where this law came from, is that county governmental entities were asking for way too much from developers, at least the developers thought so, right? They thought, look, you're asking for way beyond what you need to service the subdivision that I'm putting in. You're using this as an opportunity to extort from me because I really need your approval for this application, something more than what you really need. So this law developed. So we have this essential nexus, and it also has to be related. The exaction that's being asked for has to be related to the impact that the development's going to have. So it has to be related in nature, and what that means is that it has to be designed to mitigate the problem that the approval is going to cause. So for example, if you're going to approve a 500 lot subdivision and you only have a small road that's servicing that, you can ask for a road that can service that kind of volume. You can't, however, say, you know, our council chamber is looking pretty shabby, we really would like some mahogany here. That isn't related in nature. So the question you ask if it's related to nature is this solving the problem that the development is creating? If it is, you're good. The next question is the extent. Is it related in extent? So to kind of explain what this is it's more of a cost analysis. So if it costs the developer $4 million to put the road in, and the county the problem that the development is causing is, say, only a fifth of that, and the county otherwise just has some more areas that it really wants to get a collector road to, and they charge the developer for the entire road, then it's not related in extent. It has to be almost a dollar for dollar equivalency on the cost to the county and what it's asking for from the developer. So for example, famous case, about 4 cases actually, called BAM Development versus Salt Lake County. They went up, they came back down, they went up, they came back down, they went up, they came back down, and then they went up again to the courts on this case. And the way it finally turned out was The county was asking BAM Development to put in a road next to their subdivision. The road was going to cost $6.7 million to put in. They were asking BAM to contribute $84,000 as an exaction. When all was said and done, and who knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars of attorney's fees had been spent, the analysis was this. The development is going to cause a 5% increase that will need to be handled by that road. 5% of the cost of the road is around $340,000. The county's only asking for $84,000. Great, no problem. Exaction is fine, all right? That's the kind of analysis that exactions have. Like I said, your counties are doing this weekly. Be very careful. You're exposing yourself to a suit every time. That's not lining up just right, all right? So what are my recommendations, my takeaways? If we look at injury from use, the first thing I think you should ask is, whose road is it? Is it a county road? Is it a state road? Is it a municipality road? Is it an Rs2477 road? Because you're going to have different defenses to all of those, and oftentimes it's not your road. You don't have jurisdiction over it. If you don't have jurisdiction over it, you shouldn't be paying anything, and you shouldn't be worrying about a lawsuit. I know a lot of plaintiffs' attorneys that when they get in a car accident, they don't know where the road is, they just sue everybody, all right? They sue everyone who could possibly own the road. If it's not yours, get out of it as fast as you can. Were policy considerations in play? If this is a construction accident where there was construction on the road and an accident resulted, was the cause of the accident the result of any policy that you can point to? Were there discussions? Were there studies? If there were studies, you probably have a good shot at discretionary function immunity. And then finally, if a defect is to blame, was it an obvious defect or was it a latent defect? If a latent defect, you have a good shot at immunity, but then again, you're going to have to go through the entire case in order to be judged immune, all right? So for the other kind of injury, the injury to real property from construction, improvement, and maintenance, a couple recommendations. One is to make sure you document agreements with real property owners. I have a case right now where we had a roads supervisor who felt that when he was out widening county roads, that a handshake was as good as gold, and he didn't need to get written permissions from property owners to widen those roads. Well, you know what happens, right? He felt his handshake was good as gold. So did the other guy, by the way. He's also that kind of guy. But they didn't understand one another. And when that road got built, there was a lawsuit. Because one person understood one thing, one person understood another thing. Make sure your road supervisors are getting written authorizations when they go out to widen roads or go out to get roads. You might not know it because I can tell you that a lot of the people at that county did not know that this was the way this was being done. So please check up on that to avoid liability. Also, when you get a case like this, sometimes if you look at the cost of litigation, you look at how much the verdict could be, and you look at how much it would just cost you just to condemn it, sometimes it makes more sense just to condemn it, all right? If you look at just comparing the costs of each, so that's an option that I want you to keep in mind and be mindful of. Hopefully, if you do these things, we can avoid these kinds of results for you in the future. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions? All right. Oh, yes?
I have a question relative to use of those roads.
Mm-hmm.
Down in our area, we have a lot of OHV recreation where we have actually allowed for road for the Rs2477 or otherwise OHV use. In some cases, they're paid. OHV manufacturers specifically label those products as non-strong highway use.
Okay.
What liability does the county have or cities that are on that?
Okay, so the question is, if you have OHV trails that are considered county roads, and people are riding on them with OHVs that are only for paved roads. For non-paved roads, but some of the roads are paved, is that what you're saying? Okay, so some of the roads are paved. And I would say that you still are probably looking at some shared liability, because what the defense is going to be, you shouldn't have been driving that vehicle on this road. You were, so you're going to be negligent, but it's going to be a question of contributory negligence. So the question is, what percentage is going to be applied to the county versus the driver? And unfortunately, that's a question of fact, and it's probably going to be very difficult to get out of on a motion. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
So now you're seeing a lot of long distance road biking
Right.
events. Say they come into your county on paved roads that the shoulders aren't that great. How about them if they wreck on paved roads? Is the county a liability for such events?
Okay, so the question is, if you have road bikers that are coming through, touring through your county, and they're on these paved roads that have very small shoulders. Again, I'm sorry to say you're looking at a fact question, because the argument that they're going to make is you have an obligation to make sure that these roads are safe for travel. It was foreseeable that road cyclists are going to be coming through here, so you had an obligation to give us safe travel on these roads. On the other hand, the county will respond with, you saw the shoulder of the road, and you chose to ride on it anyway. So you at least share some of the negligence here. So again, unfortunately, you're looking at a fact question that's not going to be resolved probably in motion. You're probably looking at going all the way through trial unless you settle.
Wouldn't that also be a policy issue, so you don't need to make the legislative choice, not to do
Oh, good point.
access for cyclists?
Yeah, so the comment here is that might also be a policy decision as well. You might have discretionary immunity. If you have, the thing is, you can't create a policy after the fact. So if you're going to, up front. So if you're looking at it and you're saying, we just can't afford to purchase the extra property it'll take to put on these shoulders, and we've looked at that cost and we've made that cost decision, yeah, you might have a good shot at discretionary immunity. Good point. Anything else? Yes?
What about when you include any special event permit that the event provider or promoter recognizes that this road has a narrow shoulder and that the road is not in the greatest condition and will sign off on any liability of the county? Will that have any merit at all?
So the question is, if you have a special event permit and the person running the race or the tour signs off, recognizes that the road is not in the best circumstance, will that have an effect if it has an immunity clause or an indemnity clause, I guess, from the organizer? I would say the indemnity clause is probably enforceable under those circumstances, but I haven't looked into that in particular, so I'm sorry, I don't know for sure. My guess is it would probably be enforceable.
Best thing to do with those is to also require that they get a waiver from every participant, that they also recognize that.
We do as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.